everybody. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Let's see, it's 6:58, so we got 2 minutes. And I'm really, look at me, I'm not prepared at all. But I'm getting there. Clearly I'm not in the yarn store. Pop on, say hi. Tell me what you're working on. Tell me what you did this weekend. We'll give everybody a few minutes to come on. And let me know if you can hear me okay too. I have my phone propped up on an apron draped over an electric spinning wheel up in my mom's craft room. So, hi Nicole. I can't talk a lot about yarn this week because I'm not at the shop. I could talk about my mom's yarn, but then you guys would just want to steal her yarn from her. Hello, Mom. So my mom's watching from downstairs. I should have had her come up here and sit with me. Lisa, you can hear me fine. Good. Hi. As always, if you have the opportunity to share the video while I'm live or later in any of your craft groups, I appreciate it. I like to reach as many people as I can. If you're watching, say hi. If you're watching live, if you're watching a replay, let me know you're watching a replay. Still say hi. I like to hear from all of you. Hi, Joyce. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Julie. Oh, I hope everybody had a good weekend. Since I'm at my parents' house, I don't have to drive, so I get to have a glass of wine. So you can join me. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Ruth. You're like, Mom likes my space. It's hers. I would do a little tour, but I really just ran right up here, so I didn't look around to see even what was in the background. I was just trying to not be in the dark. Hi, Edie. Hi, Jody. Hi, Charlene. Janie, thank you. I'm going to be talking about this. I finished something. Okay, so we are at 7 o'clock on Monday. So welcome to Monday Motivation. I am Kristen. I'm the owner of the Little Yarn Shoppe in downtown Saginaw, Michigan, 203 South Washington. The shop is open Wednesdays through Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays are just a little special bonus. You get to see me on a day the shop's closed. Hi, Joan. Hi, Tammy. As you can clearly see, for those of you that just jumped on, I am not in the shop. I am at my mom and dad's house out in the Thumb in Lexington. Hi, Josie. We had a heck of a weekend. In addition to it being Father's Day, we had a lot of family in from out of town because I had a cousin getting married on Saturday. So we had the wedding and the reception. And then yesterday we celebrated my parents' 50th wedding anniversary with 100+ people at their house. It was awesome. It was a lot of work and stressful, but it was great. Had family in from all over the country, from California to New Jersey, from Tennessee, Illinois, all over the place. It was crazy and it was fun. And Florida. Denny came from Florida. I have just a few notes today. Obviously, I can't unbox any yarn unless it was my mom's, and I think she'd be a little upset if I was trying to sell her yarn again. Hi, Cindy. So, what am I wearing? I am wearing my finished summer shandy. So gosh, I wish I had it with me. Maybe I showed you guys last week. Did I show you how much yarn I had left last week with trying to finish this top? I feel like I wasn't quite there yet. I think I finished it Wednesday. So you guys will have to let me know. This is the summer shandy top. Fingering weight yarn, stripes in 2 colors. It's knit flat from the bottom up. You split up here and knit that, and then knit down the back. You do have some seaming. You seam along the side, but it's not that much. It's not supposed to have an uneven hem. Let me see if I can back up a little. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's not supposed to have an uneven hem, but I got a little bit looser with my gauge as I went along. Seems to be a theme with me. Except for the smallest size and I think the 2 largest sizes, you need 2 skeins of 2 colors of fingering weight or sock weight yarn. So this was one of the yarns that I talked about, well, 2 of the yarns that I talked about a couple weeks ago, both Cascade Heritage yarns. I do have more yarns to show you guys. I just have to wait until next week because I didn't bring it all with me. Hi, Debbie. This was such a fun knit. I have had some people just do it in one variegated yarn, and that's a really neat look. I have had people ask about using a self-striping yarn for this top. The downside of that is when you split for your fronts, using a self-striping yarn, your stripes are going to change, and they're going to be a different width. So they'll be a different width, and they may not match up from side to side unless you intentionally start at the same place on both sides. Hi, Jackie. I got to see Jackie yesterday, and I haven't seen her in, maybe 8 years, 9 years. Oh, we got to see a lot of people yesterday. And because I don't have to drive home from the shop, I can enjoy a glass of wine. I meant to bring up the wine bottles. We had bottles made with my parents' wedding picture on it. It was fantastic. So that's what I'm wearing. I finished the same thing. I am working on, where did I put it? There it is. I'm working away on my Curly Q coverlet. It's growing. It's getting bigger, which is what growing means. Oh, I've got, look, it's starting to look like something. Can you see the star? Starting to look like a star. I was going to bring my mom's up so you could see the difference with the yarn she's using and the yarn I'm using. They both are just beautiful. And I know we've got a few other people making them as well. This is a really fun knit. And I really would have it done by now if I wasn't working on my fireworks sweater and this sweater. And I thought I was going to get all kinds of knitting done this weekend. That has not happened. But that's okay. So again, if you're just joining, I see I've got a few more people on now. If you're just joining, say hi. Tell me what you're working on. Tell me what you did for the weekend. If you did something special for Father's Day. I think Melissa and her dad went golfing. I think that's what I saw a picture of. I celebrated with my dad. Mom says my curly Q looks great. Yes, I just haven't had time to work on it. We were sitting around the fire last night, and I should have been working on it because it would have kept me a little bit warm. So when I go out of town, I don't know about you guys, when I go out of town, the first thing I plan is what I'm going to take to work on, whether it's knitting or crochet. What I'm going to wear kind of takes a back seat to things. So I brought, and I always pack way more than I'm going to do. Lisa, you and I talked about that too, that, you think you're going to have all this downtime and you're going to be relaxing and have tons of time to knit, and then life happens. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you had the time to make memories, because that's what it's all about. Melissa, I'm in charge of driving the cart, keeping him hydrating, and keeping score. That's pretty much all I like about golf, is the being outside and driving around in the cart. Not a big fan. Mom's working on her curly Q. Tammy, every time you leave the house. Julie working on the rose window tee. Yay, Julie came in. We've got her back into garment knitting. We picked out this beautiful yarn for this tee that looks like stained glass across the top. It's absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait until that's done. Julie's the one that last week brought in another 4 shawls for me to take pictures of and show you guys. They're gorgeous. She does phenomenal work. It's so unusual to be able to have a glass of wine with you guys. Julie working on summer sorrel. Yesterday you had a cookout. Excellent. Well, it was right around Mondo's birthday too, right? So you guys got a double celebration. I don't have a lot of other things to talk about in terms of projects, but I did have a note to talk about how I knit a little bit faster. So part of it is because I knit continental. So I hold my yarn in my left hand. I was a crocheter first. When I was learning how to knit, I was watching videos and I saw some people held their yarn in their right hand, some people held their yarn in their left hand. And so I called my mom. I said, all right, what's the difference? Which one's right? And the answer a lot of times is there's no right, there's no wrong. Whatever works for you, just be consistent with it. And it's always felt more comfortable to use my left hand. Naturally, for a lot of people, that means they're faster, especially if you're switching between knits and purls, because all I have to do is move my finger. But besides the fact that I knit a lot, which means my house doesn't get that clean, but I get to show you guys a lot of really cool things. There are a couple things that I think about when I'm knitting that I thought I would kind of share with you. Some of it may seem a bit overwhelming or too much, but maybe for some of you it will help, so we can talk about it. Melissa, I cannot figure out continental to save my life. I have a hard time with color work and I have a hard time throwing or teaching somebody English style. If somebody needs help with something, I try to demonstrate with however they knit so it's easier for them to visualize. Definitely slows me down. But SSKs are one of the big things that slow people down a lot, whether it's in lace. Both the firework top and the summer sorrel have knit two togethers and SSK, which means slip, slip, knit. Those two things make your decrease, they're both decreases, they make them go two different directions. So when you knit two together, your stitches slant to the right. When you do a slip, slip, knit, your stitches slant to the left. It's all about which stitch ends up on top. There are a couple little cheater ways that you can get around the SSK. If you're not doing lace and you're not doing something that has stitches going up in a straight line, you can knit two together through the back loop. So if you've got a pattern that just kind of repeats and stacks up and then has an SSK along the way, I have a lot of customers that knit two through the back loop and it gives them a very similar look. It twists that front stitch, but a lot of times you can't see it, so it's not that big a deal. If you're doing lace, if you're doing something where it does show one consistent row of stitches that go up, then you can't cheat that way because it looks a little funky. But what I do, what, Melissa, tell me, say what, am I, can you do that with your sorrel? No, you cannot, because with those elongated stitches, it's going to twist that top one. But this is what I'm going to talk about. With the sorrel and the fireworks, you've got this elongated stitch that you slip for a number of rows before you knit it together or do an SSK with something else. One of the things that I started to do was really pay attention to, okay, which one comes before that, which one comes first, because they're almost side by side. So am I doing the SSK first or am I doing the knit two together first? The round prior, I will slip my stitch the opposite way. So then I can knit two together through the back loop and it's not really through the back loop. It only twists the second stitch. Tell me if that makes any sense. It makes sense in my head. I'm very much balanced right brain, left brain, so I can visualize how things look, but I can also plan ahead and see what's going to help me. So I'm trying not to, sometimes it's hard to see without having it right in front of you or visualize. The other thing I have been known to do is if it's a pattern that repeats, again, quite frequently, where I know I can anticipate I've got a slip, slip, knit every 5 rows and it's always in the same place, I will wrap those 2 stitches the opposite way on my previous row. It does take a little more thinking, and I find myself halfway through a row doing it one way and then halfway through a row doing it the other way. So Melissa, let's see what you said. For the first elongated stitch, I would normally slip as if to purl. What would I need to do to that stitch to do the knit 2 together in the back loop? So this is another thing. Slipping stitches. And Suzanne, who teaches my sock classes, we've talked about this a little bit with patterns and with heels and toes on socks. What does it mean when it says slip? If they don't specifically say slip as if to purl or slip as if to knit, which is how your needle goes into the stitch, if you slip as if to purl, it doesn't change the orientation of your stitches. If you slip as if to knit, it does. It flips it. Almost anytime you're slipping a stitch but not decreasing, you want to slip it as if to purl. Always the same way, so it keeps those stitches the same. If you're doing a decrease, if you're doing an SSK, unless they tell you otherwise, you should be slipping as if to knit. Slip one as if to knit, slip the other as if to knit, put them back, knit them together through the back loop. So Melissa, if you normally slip it as if to purl, you would slip it as if you knit it, just like you would with the SSK. And then the next stitch, you could either knit as normal or knit it and wrap it the opposite way, and then be able to do the SSK. Because that second stitch is going to the back, you don't really have to think about that one as much. So just kind of little things like that. I do try to anticipate what's coming up and how I can make it faster for myself. The same with repairing things. I really encourage anybody who has made a mistake and needs something fixed, please, please, please don't rip it out before you come into the shop to get it fixed, or before we talk about it, because if worst case scenario, we have to rip it back. If that's what you're going to do, that's what needs to be done. But if we can fix it, I can't fix it if you've already ripped it out, and I can't see what exactly you did wrong in order to help you not do it again. So whether it's a drop stitch or a cable done backwards, or you forgot to do a pattern on a certain row, a lot of times we can drop down in knitting, not in crochet, but in knitting, we can drop down and fix it. But there have been so many times when I feel like I could have saved Karen or I or Deb could have saved somebody a lot of re-knitting if they brought it in or kept somebody from repeating the same thing, making the same mistake again. You guys, tell me while you're watching, tell me if there are things that you do that help you knit faster, or things maybe you do differently that it never really occurred to you that most people don't do. Part of it is I just like to knit all the time. We do have a house full of knitters here. And we had quite a few knitters around this weekend. I have a lot of aunts and family friends who knit. My Aunt Emily, actually, oh gosh, I should have taken a picture of her today. My Aunt Emily was in from New Jersey, and she had on her Anchors sweater. Okay, so Melissa, it's ANKER apostrophe S, Anchors sweater. Hi, Diane. The designer has a few different versions of this. She's got a summer one, she's got a kids one, an adult version. I believe she's got a cardigan and a pullover. So my Aunt Emily had hers on today, and it looked beautiful. That is definitely on my list of things to make, because it's just well designed, and it's easy to see what's happening. There are no make one left, make one right, things like that in there. My mom's working on her curly Q, as she said. Victoria's still working on her mosaic cowl. That's what she brought with her to work on, and she hasn't had a chance to do that either. My sister-in-law is working on a shawl that we finally got her on track by adding lots of stitch markers. So that's another thing. If you've got, especially with lace, stitch markers and lifelines are your friends. If you get to the end of a repeat, if it's a chart, put a lifeline in. A lot of times we use dental floss because it's very thin, it's very slippery, and if you're using interchangeable needles, a lot of them have that little hole in there where you can pull the floss through as you knit a row. And if it's a pattern that has a repeat of 10 stitches and it goes across the first repeat, there's one set. The second repeat, there are two. Put stitch markers in between there if you can with the repeats, because if it's boxed as a repeat on a chart, you should be able to put markers there, and you'll know right when you get to the end of the repeat. If you're not at a stitch marker, then something's off. It will tell you right away. Okay, so I see you guys telling me some stuff. Let's see. Melissa, I use only circular needles, even for something that isn't knit in the round. Yes, that confuses a lot of people. I learned on circular needles. The catalyst for me to learn how to knit was that I got this mystery box of yarn back when Craftsy used to do that, and I could pay, a certain amount of money and they would send me some stuff, and there was a set of needles in there. So I said, I'm going to learn to knit, and I'm only going to use this set of needles, and I'm only going to make one thing. I'm not going to buy more needles, and clearly that didn't last very long. But I learned on circular needles, and I know it is tricky for some people to grasp the concept, and we've got some tricks for that too. But if I work on straight needles or double points, I end up dropping things because I'm used to everything being connected. And I know myself well enough to know I'm going to lose a DPN. Instead of 5, I'll have 4. I'm going to lose one of my straights. If you're traveling, the circulars are a lot easier to travel with too. If you're on a plane, you're not elbowing the person next to you. So Melissa, that's a good tip. I just find things are a little bit easier to transition that way if you're using circular needles too. Let's see, Tammy, edges. In Germany, learn to always slip the last stitch. Most people do the first. That, it depends on the pattern. That's one of those things where if you're consistent, that's what's most important. A lot of patterns don't have you slip that edge stitch. That is personal preference. I tend to like to do that, especially if it's a garter edge, because I don't like those little purl bumps. I like to see a nice smooth line. Things like this top don't have a slip stitch edge, but it had an I-cord edge, and then you seam that together. But that gives you the same really nice finished edge look. I like both of those. Melissa, hopefully that one is right. Yes. All right, let's see. Jody, markers are my best friends for repeats. Yes. Yes, they have saved me a lot. Counting your stitches frequently will save you too. Not doing that has hurt me more than once in the past, where I just am going along thinking everything's fine, and I get to the end of a section and it's a big section, and all of a sudden I have too many stitches or too few stitches. So count frequently. If it makes sense to you, write it out. If a pattern isn't clear to you the way it is, take a pen and paper, write it out row by row. There are times that I have done that for patterns that I can read, and it just isn't quite making sense in my head. But if I go and say row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and write it out, it sometimes clarifies things. And then a lot of times patterns will say 2 stitches increased on this row, so I can kind of keep track of how many stitches I should have too. If you're good in Excel, I really like Excel or Google Sheets, Excel, for things like that, because it's easier if you know how to use Excel. You understand what I mean. Let's see. Melissa, those light bulb shaped stitch markers are so nice. That way I can hook a drop stitch to keep it from continuing to unravel. Yes. Oh, that's smart. Hook it to the cable. That makes it, I don't think I've ever done that. That makes a lot of sense. So Melissa's talking about, they look like little, they're called pear pins a lot of times, but they're metal. They close like safety pins, but they're shaped like pears or light bulbs, and they open and close. They're, why can't I think of the word? You guys know what I mean. Well, I was going to say I'm on my first glass of wine, but it's the same glass, but I did refill it once. Removable stitch markers. There we go, you guys. Yes, any removable stitch markers. If you drop a stitch, the very first thing you want to do is put a stitch marker on it and hook it to something else so it's not going to go any further. Melissa said hook it to your cable of your knitting if you're using circular needles. That makes a lot of sense. Then you know it's where it needs to be, and when you get back to it, you know, you remember to fix it. Let's see, Josie, may sound counterintuitive, but my best recommendation for learning to knit faster is to slow down, really concentrate on holding the needles and yarn the same way all the time. Training muscle memory. Yes. That is very true. I do that if I'm learning a new technique. Well, really, if we're learning a new technique, slowing down, you end up starting a little slow, and sometimes it does. You have the urge to go back to your old way because it's faster and you know what you're doing. I am guilty of that, very much so. If I'm knitting and purling, if I do the Norwegian purl, which is a whole nother show in itself, my ribbing or whatever I'm doing with knits and purls looks much smoother and much more consistent than if I just flip-flop the yarn back and forth. But, okay, so here's another thing that helps me go a little bit faster. You probably have heard me say I don't like to purl. I like things knit in the round so I don't have to purl back on rows, but that's often not the case. Obviously, if we're doing shawls or anything like that, I can't do everything in garter all the time. So I did exactly what Josie was saying. I watched a video and I slowed down and I looked at how purl stitches were formed. I would purl a stitch and I would turn and look at it from the other way. And then I would go back and undo it and redo it, look at it and really see what's happening with the stitches. I taught myself to knit backwards. So essentially I knit like a right-hander and I knit like a left-hander. So anything, entrelac is a great example for when this is very handy. So you're not flipping every 6 or 8 stitches because you're going back and forth. The bobbles that were supposed to be on my firework sweater, when I did them the first time, it makes it so much easier to just knit across and purl back without having to turn my work. I believe there are some videos. I'm sure there are some videos out there on how to do that. I'm happy to help you guys. I don't know how to do it if you knit English style. But if you're a continental knitter, I can try and show you how to do it. Joyce. Oh, Joyce said that. I said Josie. Sorry, Joyce. Diane. Oh, Diane, you're knitting on the anchor. Cool. Only circular needles. Some things I just have to knit on straights. Beautiful needles. Yes, that makes a difference too. Christina, hi. Have a hard time counting my stitches. Markers help to keep patterns in check. Yes, and that's true. And even if you don't have a repeat and you are increasing on a project, there's no rule that says you can't put a marker every 10 stitches or every 25 stitches. So you're not having to count all the stitches all the time. I do that with cast-ons. If I have a lot of stitches to cast on, I'll stop every once in a while because I don't count from the beginning. I just cast on a bunch and then count and see where I am. And when I'm doing that, I'll put a marker usually every 25 stitches. Melissa, I can't believe I have a drink that you already didn't do. Tammy, coil the safety pins. Yes, okay. Diane, thank you. I love how the top came out. Yes, you do that too. Yes, Joyce, knitting backwards is very handy for short rows. Socks, it works really well for socks, the heels when you're going back and forth. it just, you guys bear with me a second. There's a spider on the floor. I need something. I might use a box. I can't get it because it's in a corner. One moment, please. I do not like spiders. And if you know me, this is very brave. I don't even like to get this close. Okay. Crisis averted. Look, it made me sweaty. You guys. It probably helped that I had a glass of wine earlier, that I could handle that. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Short rows and socks. Yes. Knitting backwards. I need a drink of water. Yes, Mom, in your house. If I couldn't find it or it disappeared, I probably would have hollered for somebody to come up and bring a zapper. I'm trying to think if there are any other things that help me knit faster. A lot of practice. Honestly, it's a lot of practice. Do you need me to bring you more wine or more spiders? Please, no more spiders. My sister-in-law's here too, and she's watching downstairs. Lisa, can I explain knitting backwards again? Yes. So I will try. When I taught myself to knit backwards, I looked at how a purl stitch was formed. Marie, no, I'm good. Thank you. I looked at how a purl stitch was formed. So I took, I don't know, a dishcloth or something like that. That was an easy project that I wasn't going to mess up. I would get to the end of a knit row, turn it, and purl my first stitch. I would probably go a couple stitches in. And then I would turn my work back to the knit side and look at how the yarn was on that last stitch when I purled it. It was a lot of just looking at that stitch as it was being made. So I'd flip it back, either unpurl that stitch or purl the next one and do the same thing. Really watch how when you're purling, you put your needle in, your yarn goes from the front up and over between your needles and you pull it through. So then I would flip it, go, okay, well, it's coming from behind and it needs to go between the needles if I were knitting. It helps too to visualize how, thinking of yourself as a left-handed knitter and how a left-handed knitter would knit if they were mirroring you. I don't tend to teach left-handed people to knit that way though, because patterns aren't written that way. It does make a difference unless things are charted. It does make a difference on things, and we use both hands for our knitting anyway. So it really doesn't matter whether you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm right-handed, but I hold my yarn in my left hand. I don't know what else. Primarily, it's hours. You know, when they say you have to have 10,000 hours or whatever before you call yourself an expert, I still definitely do not call myself an expert. I don't want to calculate how many hours I've knit because it's a lot. Don't compare your knitting to anybody else's. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. I had a sign in the shop that I think somebody bought it. It was one that I had made that says, "Comparison is the thief of joy." It was attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt, but I believe it's really true. All we can do is make ourselves a little bit better, and that should be our goal. When I have people come in and say, "I've been knitting my whole life, I've been knitting as long as you were born, and I don't understand how you can knit so much faster, or you knit so many more things," it's not about the number of years you've known how to knit. It's about the number of hours you have spent knitting, and I spend a lot of hours knitting because it's my job. You guys, it's not your job. Well, some people, if you have Etsy shops or things like that, it might be your job. But so I spend a lot of time doing it. I don't expect really very many other people to knit at the rate I do. I would cheer you on if you wanted to, absolutely. I love seeing all kinds of finished things. Melissa, reverse knitting continental. Okay, so Melissa posted a video, a link to a YouTube video. Cool. So there are some videos out there, of course. You can pretty much find a video about everything. Okay, let's see what time it is. 7:30. I really thought I wasn't going to talk more than 15 or 20 minutes because I didn't have much to talk about. You guys probably know me better than that. Well, that was all I had on my list. I will be back in the shop next Monday. I will have new yarn to show you guys. It's more, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is because it might be a couple different things. And it might be, well, it might take me a couple weeks. We'll see. So I think that's it. Diane, have a lot of interruptions. That slows down the process. Yes. Oh, well, there's one last thing. Different projects for different situations. So if you have something there you really have to concentrate on, don't take that to your social knitting or coffee hour or when you're watching a ball game. Have it a couple different projects where you have one that's just a straightforward knit or something very easy that you don't have to worry too much about. That's just one more excuse for me to have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 active projects going. But it saves me a lot from working on something, especially if I'm at the shop, picking things up and putting them down. There are a few things that I can't do at the shop. Very few things, but there are. The butterfly shawl is one of them. Not because it's difficult, but because it takes a lot of counting. And it's like counting to 8 and counting to 10. And I can't do that very often in the shop because I am picking it up and putting it down. Melissa, or talking to your favorite cousin. Yes, talking on the phone, Zooming, FaceTiming, any of those things can get you a little bit distracted. Okay, so I will be back at the shop next Monday. I'll also be in the shop Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 to 6. Deb's got her drop-in knit class. They are probably going right now. They go 6:30 to 8:30 every Monday. That's if you need help with any project you're working on, $10 to come drop in and get her to help you for 2 hours. Wednesday beginning knit class started this past week. And honestly, I call it beginning knit because it's habit, but I say basics and beyond. Everybody that's in this current Wednesday class are people that have been knitting for a long time and really just want to increase their skills, learn how to fix their mistakes, learn how to get outside their box on things. I'm sorry if you guys hear banging in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. They're taking down the big tent that we had out in the yard. So that's Wednesdays. It's a 6-week class. Deb is phenomenal. It's totally worth it. Even if you've been knitting a long time, but you're not real confident in your knitting, I recommend it. Joyce's double knit class starts this Thursday, right? Yes. That starts this Thursday. It's a 2-session class this Thursday and next Thursday, 10 to noon. I believe I have 1 or 2 spots left in there. And Deb says, hi from the drop-in class. We're having fun. Yay! So Joyce's class is coming up Saturdays again from 3:30 to 5:30. Deb has drop-in sweater help or sweaters or whatever you need help with. Same sort of thing. As always, if you get stuck on something, don't wait for one of those times. If it's a quick fix, I'm happy to help you anytime. Deb's happy to help you anytime. Karen's happy to help you anytime. So sorry, something just popped up on my phone and I could only read part of it. So I may have to go back and look at that a little bit later. Don't feel like you have to wait for a class. I want to be able to help you. I want everybody to get back on their track with their knitting. The Monday night drop-in class is very beneficial if you've got a project that is not with yarn from our shop. It gives you a little bit more time that way as well. All right. I hope you guys have a great week. It's chilly here, but it was a beautiful weekend. We got a little bit of rain, but my parents' party yesterday, it was clear skies until pretty much everybody was leaving at, I don't know, it was dark, 10:30, 11. There's a lot of family around, so they were here a while. So I hope you had a good weekend. I hope, let's see, Nicole, do you know when the yarn we ordered for the 4th of July knit? It is coming Wednesday. So any of you that ordered in that second round of yarn for the knit along, your Earth Harvest yarns, I got notification they tried to deliver it today. The shop's closed. I was able to reschedule it to Wednesday. I don't know what time. Typically he comes in the morning. I don't know for sure, but it should come Wednesday. So I'll have that for you. You'll at least have a couple days to swatch, get your yarn and swatch before everything gets going. So have a good week. I will see you all next Monday, if not sooner. Stay motivated and craft away. Bye, everybody.